What is up? This is JB with Old Town Cards. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. And this is another episode of Just Another Card Show. Today, I have Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V to most. Gary, thanks for joining me today and welcome to the show.
Thanks, JB. How are you?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Hope you're enjoying your Friday.
I am.
So today's going to be an interview type episode, like a podcast. We'll keep it conversational, but looking for Gary to talk about some card stuff if you're open for it, Gary.
I absolutely always am. So thrilled to be here.
All right. Awesome. So first and foremost, the first thing that I want to dive into and questions that I've gotten is your departure. And I know you've talked about this as well. So you were obviously here heavy end of last year. You were talking all sorts of cards, engagement, nationals coming up, and the pandemic hits and you're gone. And I know you went to do the All In Challenge, which is awesome. And I commend the work that you're doing there. Seriously. I've been following
$60 million to feed the hungry. You can imagine what that feels like.
No doubt, man. And I want to talk about that at the end. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up in this question is, lots of people did feel a little bit abandoned there when, you pumped up cards, and I saw you talking to Blake from Deep Fried Breaks. I followed.
What a good dude. What a good dude.
He is. And I talked to Blake a lot, and, you tweet out Acuna going to hit 300. And, after tweeting that out and a lot of direct pumping and then kind of just disappear and cards plummet by 25 to 50%, within weeks of you leaving. And, people lost hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. So I just want to get, kind of from you, what do you say to those people who did, invest or gamble or whatever on those cards that you were talking about?
Well, first and foremost, it seems, I appreciate the question. It's really hard for me to think that I don't want a single person to buy anything based on my recommendation. I do want to make them. I like sharing my ideas. Obviously COVID hits and baseball doesn't start, and a lot of variables go into that. Especially off of this last weekend when I just posted some of the stuff I bought, I have to really come up with a strategy. If, somebody today said on Twitter, create a burner account if you want to talk about cards. And I've never had one in the 15 years I've been in social. I'm like, maybe that's not a bad idea. Listen, I think Acuna, I stand here today feeling unbelievable about the Acuna post. I think he's potentially is the best player in baseball. Obviously Trout holds that here, but I don't think in short-term flipping, a lot of people ask me about Project 2020. My brain doesn't even go into projects like that because it's too short term.
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know how to fit on the record. Obviously, I love engaging with you on Twitter and feel like you have a lot of good vibes. That's why I said yes to this. Let me make it very clear here. There is never in the history of my life when I talk about cards until the day I die that I think in 3 or 6 or 12 week periods.
And I think that's good to know for people because I think, a lot of times
I think it's a great point. Look at De'Aaron Fox. I feel amazing about De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
He got injured this year. I don't know where he is compared to when I said or what have you, but I think it's a good point, JB. There is zero of my DNA on when I talk about a card of hey, this is going to be great for 10 weeks. What I've come to learn right away off of this last weekend with Durant and Booker is oh, fuck. There's always going to be a spike. If I continue to share cards at this point, I'm aware that things will go up.
And disclaimer here, Gary, I don't want you to not be allowed almost. And the burner idea is awful. And, it's something that I'm going to actually ask you about is your place in cards. And I'll actually jump to that right now. So
let me finish that last thought because I'm excited.
Ahead.
This is going to be fun. I just texted my family thing and say maybe I'm going to be a few minutes late because I already love the energy.
I've got some good questions I prepared, man.
This is fun. I love sports cards. I think Acuna is going to be a ridiculous. He can get hurt. He can become Bo Jackson. He can become Derrick Rose. But Jesus, has anybody watched this kid play? There's nothing else to say.
Although I'm a Nats fan, so I'm partial to Soto. Well, I hype it a lot on which one's better.
Listen, I was super. I bought more Soto than Acuna, by the way.
Okay.
I was talking about Soto. I just think So I'm still curious about Soto. Acuna for me is already like, oh, this is a lock.
Well, one of them hit home runs in the World Series. The other didn't, but
take that, Braves fan. Anyway, those two are just fucking scary good. Anyway, nonetheless, keep going.
All right. So I want to ask you this question then, and I'm skipping a little bit ahead.
Real quick, actually, I apologize because I know a lot of people are going to listen. What do I say to them? I'm sorry if you bought Acuna and thought you were going to, I don't like, they went up, so you could have sold
because that happens whenever you mention something. I mean, it goes up right away. If you said Acuna 500, it would go to 500. It would. You have that pull.
I'm never going to, even if you noticed, there was an exchange where I still have to go back to the tweet, but I fully believe it. Like
You said three. You said Acuna going to hit 300.
And I'm going to own, like, that's great. So
you put the price on it and it hit it last day.
I never am going to do that again because if it went to 400 or 500, I would do it again. But if you're telling me the max was 3, and then
I think if you pull the reports, it would be pretty much on the dot. 300 was the peak, and then it went down from there. I don't have the data in front of me. It peaked at about 300, like on the dot, and then subsided to about 275, and then plummeted down below 200 or around 200. Once obviously baseball was no longer going to happen. So
I think putting numbers on there is something now that I really, and I'll tell you the Acuna stuff and the Soto stuff, because I've talked about a lot of things. Like I talk about the 1972 Icy Beer set. Nothing's happened. Like I've talked about things.
There's somebody who has, but
listen, by the way, on the record, I think it's a crazy good set. I like weird shit, but nonetheless, I definitely felt it this weekend. The Booker and Durant thing really took me aback. I really kind of like spoke with my brother a lot because he knows how much I love it, and he's into it. Like, that's way too much. Like first of all, let me rephrase. I unbelievably believe, even at the prices they're at now, that what I believe in macro sports cards, that they're going to be in a good place.
And that's great. And I do, let me ask you this question, because I think it's exactly what you're talking about. So I want to know, what is your desire within the hobby? And let me explain. So you said yesterday, and we've talked a little bit about it, that you kind of want to be just one of the guys collecting. And I think the issue here is
No, I want to be one of the guys collecting. And I, what's funny? I haven't sold anything outside of the National, but I don't want to, my entire history of sports cards from 1984 to 1994, when it was my entire life, was about collecting and selling.
Right. But I think the difference is that the guys who are collecting and selling don't have sets. You're going to be viewed as big time, whether you want to or not. I mean,
that I understand.
You have your face on cards. You were in Series 2 2019. You had Spend a Day with Gary V, I think, type cards. So it's hard for you to just, you're in this situation where you came in super hot. You had a set of cards, and now you want to fade back into the background.
I don't want to fade in the background. I don't want to fade background.
So what do you want? So
I want to be part of the community.
In your real world.
In my real world. Yeah, go ahead.
What's your place in the hobby?
I want to do what I want to do in the same way that you want to do what you want to do.
And I think it's good if people understand what that is.
I'm going to buy cards. I'm going to save a bunch because 85% of what I'm buying is vintage. Mm-hmm. So about 85% of what I'm going to do is buy vintage basketball and sit on it in perpetuity / when I'm 67 years old, I'll do a Sotheby's auction, or if God forbid everything goes shitty for me, I'll have to do some stuff. But 75, 75.
I think you built enough of a good brand at this point.
I don't expect.
Probably isn't going to happen.
Listen, you never know. You can have a brain aneurysm. I don't. You never know. God forbid. And then 25%, 15%, I want to do what I did as a kid with Kenny Lofton, and Patrick Lemon, which didn't work out, which is look at 5 to 7 rookies a year and really bet on them, whether it's Jaren Jackson Jr. or De'Aaron Fox or Soto or Acuna, like really play modern, because it's fun because they're playing actively. As much as I love a Dr. J rookie card, there's only, so that's what I want.
And he's not playing. I think that's a fun part of it. It is a
huge part of it. And I want to sell at the National. That was fucking amazing. That I definitely am going to want to do every year. Set up at the National, and that's where I'll probably do most of my selling. listen, I'm hoping to be a very successful businessman. I wouldn't hate to maybe one day get to a place where I can buy a Fleer or Upper Deck or a Tops. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I love this thing in a lot of ways. I think that's a 10-20% chance thing. But if we're going on what do I want to do, and if I'm going super transparent so people have no confusion, I think
that's what we're looking for.
I think that's cool. Like, I thought about that as a kid, but I would put that in the 10 to 20%.
Fleer coming back. Breaking news.
It's just, I loved Fleer as a kid.
No, of course we all did. You might have a few years on me, but
somebody hit me up recently. One thing that's, as an entrepreneur, you're a yes man, not a no man. So, I can't put in stone what I'm up to. What I definitely am not up to is buying 500 Devin Booker Prism rookie cards, saying it's a good card, and then 4 weeks or 12 weeks later selling it.
And question on that then.
Please.
And I do believe you there, even though others may not.
Okay.
So here's my question though.
Please.
What about people who work for you, who hear what you say, they hear a player's name that you're putting out? How do you prevent them from doing just that, buying exactly what Gary's saying in real time? It's almost like hearing that a company is
totally get it.
Whatever before the bell, and then they can buy a bunch.
I think that's a good point. The good news
is a microeconomy.
No, I think that's a very valid point. Couple things. 90% of what I buy through the Edison Sports Card Biz eBay account. So people are doing that anyway, right? Okay. Not like it's not, it's all public data, right? So the good news is, I think, and this is just.
But what about the members of your team? I believe you.
Well, Lou and Tyler are the two most active, and they've probably put, $1,200 to $3,000 into sports cards, and basically they're buying Pokemon and getting me into it. Listen, I can definitely tell you that the only person that has the biggest advantage is Lou, because he works for me and he's making sure I'm paying my PayPal and things of that nature. He also has absolutely no money. Could he be telling other people? Sure, he could. Here's the good news. What I knew was dangerous was amassing a lot of something and then talking about it. So whether, like, when I talked about Acuna, 25, 30, like, I don't want to say the number and then be wrong because everyone's looking for every single, but I can
give you general numbers. I follow this stuff pretty well. So just go ahead. I'll tell you if you're.
For me, I apologize. For me, I can say this. I definitely didn't have 50 Acunas when I said I think Cunha. One of the things I decided this weekend when I saw the whole thing with the Booker and the Durant stuff is, okay, because I do like being historically, I like predicting. That's what I did with social media. I like that.
It's fun. I'm right there with you.
One of the things I'm definitely going to do is predict and have zero inventory. I'm going to start to do that if I want. First of all, there's a part.
But see, I disagree. I think it's okay. So what I do is I predict only based on inventory that I have. I'm only going to say, but I'm not you. So there's a difference there.
Well,
I'm only going to say the things that I'm willing to put my money behind because I think
I think my answer
that's a bigger move. So, but it sounds tough for you.
Well, it's not, what I'm trying to figure out.
But for your situation.
Listen. You're not going to please everybody, and I respect that. And there's a whole subculture of just collecting, and they hate anything that's business, and I understand that and respect it. It's just that I can't not be who I am either. I don't, you can't live by somebody else's rules. Nobody owns. A lot of people talk about like the OGs. I laugh when they say that. Like, for a lot of people that are the OGs of the hobby, there are people that I know that have been in the hobby 20 years longer. Like, where does it stop and start?
Well, and if people aren't interested in something appreciating, I'm kind of of course I want what I'm buying to appreciate. I think the question is where is the difference between investor and collector? We all hear it all the time. I'm actually curious, how do you define investor versus collector, and what do you view that as?
I think an investor is somebody who buys this to make money on it. And I think a collector is somebody who buys it to look at it.
But I think there's a lot of people in the middle of that.
There should be. By the way, I'm in the middle.
Yeah, right.
I'm not buying 90 Frank Thomas Leaf rookies to make a flip. I don't think Frank has the upside, but I buy it because that was the card I couldn't afford as a kid that I wanted so bad. And I like looking at it.
Mm.
I'm buying Sam Darnold completely as a collector and as a Jet fan. Do I know that they can go through the roof if he ends up clicking? Sure. I think the far majority of everybody on Twitter, the forums, Instagram, at the Nat, I would say, it'd be really interesting to figure out whoever has sold every card or has saved every card. It's almost no one. I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
so that's
I think
how I define it.
It's very much in the middle. I think that some of the issues, I'm not sure do you know anything about what happened this week with Bowman Sapphire?
Yes, I saw that there was a bunch of the website was crashing. I think you posted "fuck you," like I'm a real ops, I'm a real real buyer, and I saw your screenshot.
Yeah,
so
it's like
this is so
and meanwhile,
hard.
I see these bot accounts of people who are hashtag flip life. And they're getting Topps on their website says they're only supposed to get 1 box per household, and they're getting 12. And so I think that's a lot of the animosity of the people who are coming in looking to make money. And I'm curious what your thought is there, because that's where a lot of this rift is coming. Is the collectors?
Yeah, I know it is.
Want to just? I would have been delighted with this box that I got ripped. Yeah. And then there's people selling them for $700 online. And where is the delineation there? And when does it get to a point where it's just crushing us?
2 things. One, when I went to the National in Cleveland 3 Nationals ago, well, there's not going to be one this summer, but not last year, the year before. I went very quietly with my son. I was starting to get curious. The whole kids walking around flipping that were in sneak. I love when everyone's like, Gary brought all these people. Like, these people were there. That's how I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Whether I said anything or not, but
they are your guys, though. I mean, they do follow you, a lot of them.
Of course, and a lot of them don't. And I think the reality is they were there, and they were coming in droves. And yes, I have a big social media following, and people have looked into it. But let's remember that this is because Panini and Topps have manipulated scarcity.
Yeah.
Like if everyone wants I smile sometimes when I get into good conversations with buddies who are not vindictive, and we get in good talks, and they're like, Gary, but
I hope this is one of those conversations.
100% it is. Like, by the way, even the people that think I'm the worst of all time, and I look at them on Twitter, I also look at all the other stuff they talk about, and these would be my friends because we're interested in similar things. They've never had a conversation with me. So anyway, nonetheless, this is on Topps and on Panini. If everybody's mad that people are coming in, they should be mad that they're creating scarcity. Like the numbered cards, the relics, the one-offs, that's what it's built for. It wasn't the companies are driving collector and business by the way they're making the product, not the other way around.
So you put the onus more on the manufacturers than on these kids who are flipping.
I think the companies, there is no onus. I think the companies are allowed to make money. Topps has had a lot of bad years.
Okay, but what do you say then of the Flip Life gang, who are clearing entire shelves at Target, following the rep around store to store and clearing out Bowman Megas? I saw an image today. I think the guy had 111 Megas in his cart. They're clearing those out and then selling it for 4X on the secondary market.
I think that Topps should create a system that actually creates allocation, not bots, and not selling it. Target should put a limit on it. This happens all the time. This happens with Cabbage Patch Kids and Power Rangers and clothes and jewelry. This happens. I think everyone here is so focused on this market, as they should. This is the collective passion, but this happens with every single thing in the world. This is the nature of human behavior. When there's demand that is greater than the supply, or when supply is manipulated by the company to create demand. Listen, I feel uncomfortable telling somebody how to live their life. The idea of telling somebody they're not allowed to collect seems crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, you shouldn't collect. Well, of course you should. If somebody wants to buy something that, that Target doesn't put a limit on, listen, I have nothing but empathy that people are disappointed that that somebody clears a shelf and then puts it on eBay for 4X. I think they need to really have conversations with the company. It's like eBay. eBay needs to address and protect sellers.
Okay. And then question for you, and, you know, I know you kind of made it clear, you know, maybe end game, buy one of these companies. It'd be cool. You know, I know you're an entrepreneur and you like to have fun with that stuff. But how do we protect ourselves against market manipulation with people who have a lot of influence? You know, you do have a lot of influence. There are others that have a lot of influence who can move the market, and it's not something like the stock market, although that is movable as well. How do people like myself, who are just trying to follow players and actually do this thing the right way, how do we protect ourselves against those kind of situations?
Listen, there's going to be way bigger people than me coming into sports card.
I don't know,
shit.
man. I don't know.
I do know. I do know because
nobody moves cards like you do. And that's not a compliment necessarily, or or a dig or anything. It just is. It
is for five. It is for 3 times.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah, listen. On the record, I'm thrilled. If you think it's dangerous, and I think you're coming from a very neutral place, then I need to really think about not talking about cards.
I don't.
No, listen. It's okay. No, it's okay. Like, listen. If you genuinely think it's dangerous, because I don't think it's dangerous. Let me explain why. I don't give a fuck if you think Soto's good. I'm a big boy and I'm going to make my own decision. The thought that somebody's going to come along and tell me something and then I'm going to buy that because I think that's the right thing to do is not how I live my life, nor how I don't want anybody to buy. If you don't think Devin Booker is good, that's been a little bit of something that I'd be lying if I didn't. It's not like I'm out here talking about fucking.
No, and I know you pay attention to the players, which is the interesting thing. It's when you bring up the player, people who don't pay attention to the player, they'll go buy 10 with their eyes closed and bam, they'll just buy them. And I like what you're saying.
Well, here's
people
the question.
Out there, please listen. Don't just buy because someone says something.
This is what people said about Warren Buffett early in his career until he became right a lot. If I end up being historically right about Giannis and LeBron and, and Booker and Acuna, well, what the real question becomes, what's the receipts look like? If in 6 years from now, they all become right. If Luka's right, like if I'm right, then I would have been worth following. If I was wrong, like to me, the question's about being wrong.
Yeah.
Like, again, I listen, if you think it's dangerous, which I respect, that's why I'm bringing it up. I'm comfortable really debating if I need to not mention cards. It's something that really would be upsetting because it's fun for me. But if like, I don't know why people would listen unless it works for them, right? Like my hope is that if people think Acuna hurt them because they didn't have a lot of money and now it's down and like now they can't.
Like, how gamblers are, man. Go right back to the table. Try and make that money back.
Listen, ready for this? I own 0 Zions. I own 0 Project 2020. I said 0 things about them. This conversation, like this is happening everywhere with these cards. Yeah. Like I understand that I have a lot of followers and people talk about me on social. I understand that. I respect that. I understand where the OGs are coming from. Yeah. I have a lot of love for the OGs. I grew up with the OGs in a lot of ways. I just want to remind people this is happening left and right in other places.
Yeah.
It just is.
And I think the thing is just
I didn't say a single thing about like a million things that have happened in the last year in cards and disappearing. That was so unfair. By the way, on the record, I'm a very busy man with a family and a lot of responsibilities, both for profit, nonprofit, social. Like I'm living life out here. There's going to be plenty of other times that I'm going to go quiet.
And I think that is the message that I've been trying to get across a little bit lately is that I wish that when you talked about cards, it didn't move the market as much. You're a guy who, it seems, wants to be in the hobby, in and around the hobby, wants to do cards like the rest of us. And I wish other people would understand that you're doing that and that just because you mention a card, that card doesn't need to go up by 200% in value overnight just because Gary said a card.
I couldn't agree with you more other than, and this is where it gets weird,
You're always right.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not going to be always right. But look what I've been talking about. I've been talking about real guys.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the biggest problem. Like when you're talking about real guys, like, it's one thing if I'm out here talking about Julio Dominguez, are you kidding me? 16 years away from being in the league. If I was pumping the shit out of him, Jason Dominguez, right? Like
I was wondering whether or not I should correct you.
You should always correct me because I'm always.
You got it. It's Jason with 2 S's.
That's right. That kid's 600 years away from being in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, that's Brian Taylor, Todd Van Poppel all over again. I lived through all this shit.
Yeah.
I'm out here trying to talk about things that I learned in I learned the Kevin Moss. I learned the Brian Taylor. I learned the Todd Van Poppel. I'm talking about things I believe in. Devin Booker at 23 years old, stats are better than LeBron and Durant. Like that's not crazy to me.
LeBron was in at 18 though, but
respect, but like Devin Booker is not some crazy, you know what I mean? Like the funniest thing is watching what I do respect, and especially off this last weekend, because Giannis, Luka, LeBron, those just seem like so fucking obvious. Even Acuna and Soto at some level, baseball was coming. It seemed obvious based on the last 3 years of me doing homework on like the best young players and what it meant.
Sometimes it seems like you're cherry picking the best guys and then taking credit when the best guys do well.
On the record, I want what credit? I have zero interest in credit.
Oh, I saw your video. Didn't I tell you about LeBron? Come on, listen, you love credit.
Every single person that's in this that likes sports likes being right about predictions.
Of course, but don't say you don't. We all do. I like being right.
But I'm not out. But taking credit.
I saved your video that said, JB, you're absolutely right. I've got it.
Listen, to your fairness on that point, of course we all have that part of us of like, Kenny Lofton will forever be my number one. He was he got traded as a prospect from the Astros to the Indians. Like he wasn't super heralded, and I went super ham on him, and I talked about it in school, and it hit. And that's like a feeling that I want to relive. Yeah. But nothing I've talked about. And by the way, today, with what I see, I'll never talk about a Kenny Lofton because it was way too high risk when I talked about him. He wasn't obvious in the way that a Dominguez, it's just not what it's even things like Jaren, even some of the basketball players I like, I'm worried about because it's still high risk, like Shai and Jaren. It's just too early for those guys.
Yep.
Listen, I couple things that I've thought about. One, I do think if I'm going to go the route of saying, hey, I like this card, I'm going to disclose how many I own at that moment. I think that's a good start.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Whether it's 7 or 17 or 37, I think that's a good idea. As to your point about like Lou or other people around me, that's going to be hard to control. I have to give that some thought. I will say this, and I plan on keeping it this way because I think it will help me not be this horrible person. If I keep buying 80% of my cards on eBay, everyone's going to see the data if they choose to. Listen, first and foremost, I think it's a really bad business strategy to follow what I'm buying, wait for me to say it, watch it go up, and then dump it. Because the reality is that I'm not going to let that become the norm. Otherwise, I'm going to get caught up in what I'm caught up now, where like I'm this bad person by doing everything else. Because to your point, it carries too much weight, and then I'm in a chicken and egg game.
Can I ask you a question about something different then?
Of course.
What are your thoughts on potentially talking about products that you think are good versus necessarily just players? I was told this story about a guy who, he would tell people about the players that he was buying, I guess, on FIFA. And then he got to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and realized that he was manipulating the market by telling everybody who he was getting. Is there a way that potentially you say, hey, this is a decent product, and then it leaves it up much more for chance of what kind of cards you pull, or will it always just be players?
That's not fun for me in any shape or form because I don't even look at products that way. But what I will say to you is, A, I'm willing to never talk about cards again. I really am not kidding, which is okay. B, I may talk about cards I have zero inventory. Like one thing I'm thinking about. So for example, I said yesterday in that back and forth, I really think Paul Pierce is underpriced. I own 0. I hate Paul. I don't like the product part. I like the player part. So what I might need to do is not do it at all, which is something I have to consider. 2.
That sucks, man. I mean, I feel like there's a place in the hobby for everybody. And I feel like if buyers can get educated, that not one person knows everything, and that markets shouldn't just go crazy based on one individual.
But what's funny? This notion.
And that sucks for me, man. I don't want anybody to feel excommunicated.
Listen, this notion that there's these people that just buy what I like. They like. There's been like I have 0 Zions, bro.
Yeah.
Like I have 0 Morant. 0. Like there's so much going outside of me that is doing the same thing that everybody's mad at me for. Yet the difference is, and
how does that correlate? I want to make sure I'm following why not having Zions or Jaws.
Because all these people who think like this narrative that I'm the one person that knows, these individuals are buying plenty of other things that have nothing to do with me. If
you mentioned Zion overnight, it would jump by his base would jump by $150 raw lock,
which is something that I can't be involved in. I don't know what else to say.
I'm
just not going to do that. Like this week, I'm just not going to do that because then cards are going to go down eventually, bro.
Yeah, they will.
And so I don't need everybody being like, you ruined my life. I don't want anybody to buy anything. I do want to talk about what I want to buy. I'm debating if I can do that, and that's okay. Listen, there's a lot of things I want to do that I can't do. It's okay if it doesn't happen. There's so many great things. Like for example, what we started with using my platform to be a part of raising $60 million to the hungry is an incredible thing when you have an audience, right?
Absolutely.
I have no interest in being painted as a bad human being because people lost their money, their savings. I believe in what I'm saying. I believe that every single thing I said in 25 years will be better than what they bought it for today. Too many people are looking for quick score. I'm not, listen, it's fun for me to talk about being Team Shaq. I think it's wildly underpriced. It's crazy how few there are and how big of a deal Shaq is. Yeah. But if I can't talk about that, that's okay. Like, honestly, that's okay. I owned one of them.
But there's a reason that we all want to do it, though, is because it is fun. And
I may have to find
I hope that we can all find a way to, I see it all the time. Investor, collector, flipper. I do hope that we can find a way to all coexist because the shit is fun, man.
Well, listen, we do coexist. If anybody thinks they control the rules, they're being audacious.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do coexist. I think that I think that for me personally, which I understand my situation, it is what it is, man. Like if this is causing, if it's, listen, I do respect your point of view because I watch a lot of different people. Some go to the left too much, some to the right. I feel like you're in the middle. That's why I wanted to do this. I think it's awesome. It's great. I think 98%, by the way, I think 90% are great that way. I think you got 10% this way, 10% that way. And that's what's causing a lot of the ruckus. But listen, you said it's dangerous. And I that hit me. That's why I'm bringing it up for the 4th time. And maybe I'm just not going to be able to post if I decide to buy 25 and make up something.
Well, sometimes like when you see the stack of all the PSA 10 Devin Bookers, people are like, damn, Gary's in. And like, a stack of PSA 10 Devin Bookers to you because of your means isn't the same as it would be for, someone who's 20 years old. And so
that's right.
I think that there are things you can do to curb, I don't think rhetoric is the right word, but curb like the intensity of it that doesn't necessarily send the place, doesn't send it into a frenzy.
Bro, I think Devin Booker PSA 10 Prisms in 15 years is a very good thing for everybody who bought it. I believe that. You have to understand that. I believe it. It's no different than when I told everybody to buy Facebook fucking stock at $70. Like, I believe it. I don't know what else to say. Like, here's the one thing I'm proud of. I talk about the things I believe in. I'm not going to go randomly see.
Which is why I want you to hype things that you do buy. I don't want you to hype things you don't buy. At least put your name. That's what I do too. Put your name on it. I mean, I like that. I like the idea of saying how much you have at least.
I actually think though that if I think about all the feedback from everybody, not having any and then buying it at the top might be something I might want to consider. I don't know. Listen, this is a very likely non-winnable situation. My belief is that the way it's going to be I think people are going to be surprised how many people are going to get into sports cards because I can feel it. Yep. I can feel people coming. I can feel former athletes coming. Phil Hughes is there's 500 active players that like everybody saw the Giannis post.
Yep.
He's more famous than me, bro. Like it's coming. It's coming. And so listen, I think it's going to be a wild time in the industry. I think inevitably in 3, 6, 7, 9 years, I think there's going to be a junk wax era. Panini and Topps don't give a fuck about anybody. They care about their companies.
I believe that.
They're going to make ungodly amounts of product. There's going to be so much Prism. You know how many LaMelo balls are going to be printed?
I know.
Listen.
And they don't face up to anybody, which is something that I have given you credit for.
By the way,
is you're always willing to face up to any detractors. Those companies are not. They hide behind everything.
By the way, do you know how many less Devin Bookers were produced than Zions? Like people aren't looking at math. It's why I like vintage. Yeah. I'm buying vintage because there's just not that many, 61 Chamberlains. And obviously, thank God for me, I've worked hard and I can afford it now, and I couldn't back then. But I think I think vintage is better. I love you see, it's really funny. It's even when we're talking now, why I'm having so much fun. I love the debating of Soto versus Vlad Jr. That's just fucking fun. That's sports. That's Willie Mays versus Duke versus Mantle. People were doing this long before we were on Earth.
Well, I would say that it's Soto versus Acuna and Trout, but many people would tell me I may be batting out of my weight class.
I think Soto's got real upside, man.
He's got a certain energy about him that he likes to show people.
You know his that story about him in Double-A? You ever hear that story?
Maybe. Go ahead.
When he got to Double-A, they put him in he's obviously a huge
yeah. Go ahead. It's a great story. I'll let you tell
it. He gets into his room and it's not as good, or he's sharing it, it's shitty or whatever, and somebody comes, don't worry, we'll get Juan, we're so sorry, we're gonna. Then he goes and he looks up and he looks at him and goes, don't worry, I'm not gonna be here long.
Yeah, I'll be here for 10 days. Exactly.
It's fucking amazing. Anyway, nonetheless, listen, I want to say this for everybody who thinks I'm a scam artist or a bad person or this. I understand. I think that your life's work and who you are as a human will play out. I'm not perfect like any other human, but let me put this one to bed. There is 0.0 chance, and there's nothing that will ever come out to prove that I am pumping and dumping. I am not buying cards for a 4-week flip. Period, end of story. And I think that a lot of people believe, there was so many people that are claiming, I know Gary's behind Zion. I own 0. I know there was people claiming I'm behind Project 2020 pumping, and just wait to just the level of venom and cynicism that is completely based on lying is also unfortunate and leads to, listen, I'm going to get into a place where I might buy or sell a company, or VaynerMedia might have something, or I might have an issue where I could be quiet for a year. There's going to be plenty of other characters in this. I'm not here to ruin it. The hobby was way on its way prior to any peep out of my mouth.
And can I say one thing, Gary?
You can.
So the one thing that I would say to anybody who's watching is that Gary is not in the hobby every single day. Just like he's mentioned, he took time off, and he will continue to do that. And there are lots of people out there who know lots of things about cards that are going to go up and down and all around. And there are other people to listen to. And I'm not talking about myself, but actually people who do research on this stuff. So just try to make sure that you really diversify who you're listening to. And just because one person says something, it's not the be all end all. And let's have that card jump up by 5x. And that stuff's crazy. Let's try to keep this stuff within reason. And I think everybody would be much happier in that situation.
Listen, I don't think you and I can control people's behavior. I think we can control our own behavior. And if we're going to see things like the Durant and I'm comfortable with not being able to do something because I have a lot of followers. And if that's the case, then that's the fucking case. That's just, I don't know what else to say, because you made a very nice statement there, but nobody's going to listen.
I hope they do, Gary.
Yeah, but they won't, my friend, because we can't be in charge of other people's lives. They have to be able, if somebody decides they want to collect hockey cards, I don't think that they should. I don't think hockey is a popular sport.
But it's hard to sell to Canada is probably the biggest thing there, honestly.
But that's amazing that they do. And honestly, I want some Pavel Bure, Canadian upper deck rookies in my collection too. And so, it is what it is, but I'm not naive to what's brewing. And if I'm comfortable with the feedback, and I'm going to try to do the best I can. I'm going to do what I can.
All right. Well, that's it. Gary.
Thank you. I wish you well. Take care of yourself. Congrats on your engagement, bro. Take care.
Thanks, man. That was another episode of Just Another Card Show. Peace.